fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to BBallBreakdown's Starting Five with Ben Heisler. Another season is going to be in the cans. Really excited about it. Ben, glad to have you back. How is everything going?
It's good to be back, Coach. It's good to get the season finally rolling. We've seen a bunch of really good action so far. And let's begin with something that we've been waiting for all summer. LeBron came home. It was the moment we were all waiting for. And basically everything that we thought would happen, the city went nuts. Kevin Hart screamed awkwardly into a microphone. Everybody was ready, well, except for LeBron. He finished 5 of 15 from the floor, had about 8 turnovers or so. And he just looked very uncharacteristic, looked a little bit uncomfortable in his first game back in Cleveland. Obviously, the future's very bright there. But how did the Cavs get back to that point where, with LeBron, with Love, with Irving, and everybody around them, how did they get themselves going?
We knew this was going to be an issue, I think, with a new coach, a lot of new players. You know, the emotion of coming back to Cleveland, it certainly got the better of him tonight. And we've seen, LeBron let the emotion overwhelm him at times in different, places. So I have no question he'll settle down. They'll get back to winning. We did see glimpses when they looked like the best team in the league by far for a couple minutes there. My biggest concern right now is Kyrie Irving's defense is still terrible.
Yeah.
I've been ripping on him in the FIBA stuff, and it's going to be a serious, serious problem.
Well, factor in Irving's defense. Kevin Love has never been a very good defender. You obviously know what LeBron can do on the defensive end. One of the concerns that I have is being able for them to slow down. They're so good in transition, especially with Irving's speed and the way that LeBron can run the court. And Kevin Love is the best outlook passer in the league. I almost wonder for them, from a coaching perspective, is how do you get them to slow down when some of those strengths are so key?
Right. Well, you can get away with some of that stuff if you have a solid base and you're running decent offense in between. And with Dion Waiters is another issue. He's not really fitting in well. It could take him a while. It could take him never. We'll have to wait and see. But what I said last night on Twitter was for the very reason that they need to trade him, they won't be able to trade him because he's just not going to look good, even though he is a good player.
Yeah, and it's funny. I actually learned something from Shaq on Thursday night. With LeBron and Cleveland in home openers, they're 2-6, and also the Knicks assisted on 30 of 37 field goals last night. So they were off to a good start after that horrible performance against the Chicago Bulls on Wednesday. So the other big game on Thursday night, Coach, and that was Russell Westbrook going down. He left with a hand injury. We found out it's a fractured right hand, so he's going to be out for 4 to 6 months. But Perry Jones stepped up. He dropped 32. The problem is that Oklahoma City is just dealing with a ton of injuries right now. You're dealing with no Durant, no Westbrook, Reggie Jackson, Jeremy Lamb are all out. Can they stay afloat? They were talking about the on Twitter last night. They were talking about hashtag scary stories in 5 words. For me, it's thunder without Durant or Westbrook.
Absolutely. Now, did you sneak that in there? I didn't hear that he's out for 4 to 6 months. Is that what you heard?
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. So both of those. Okay. Well, we already projected that Kevin Durant, his loss for the first 15 to 20 games of the season would probably yield a couple extra losses than they're used to.
Right.
Well, you got to imagine now without Russell Westbrook there for that same stretch and longer, this is going to be a real problem in the Western Conference because now they're going to have to struggle probably to maintain a home court advantage in the playoffs. And we've seen how important that is for them and for every team in the conference. So this might be one of those seasons that they're going to look back and scratch their head and feel bad about for a long time.
I think this is a big test for Scotty Brooks. I think people have criticized his coaching style and his ability to get the most out of his team with so much talent there. I think this is a big opportunity for him to really coach a lot of guys up. You saw what Perry Jones was able to do last night. Right now, Sebastian Telfair is going to be your starting point guard, and he actually performed decent on Thursday night. But I think when Reggie Jackson comes back, this is a guy that's still more than capable of being able to fill that role, but certainly not at the level of Russell Westbrook.
Absolutely, but he'll help. He's simply talent that they need. They don't have enough talent right now.
And go to another point guard that actually got off to a terrific start as we move on to the third topic in our starting 5. Rajon Rondo back in Boston. He dropped 13 points, 7 boards, 12 assists, and a block, a steal, and a three-pointer in the win versus the Nets. He actually joked that he wasn't even at 100%. He said he felt 91% to reporters afterwards. I mean, Coach, Rondo's a guy that's always had this type of ability to put up close to triple-double type of numbers. Are you buying into the fact that he could have a bounce-back year, or just are the injuries too much of a concern for him at this point?
Oh, I'm all in. I've been all in for him, waiting for him to come back and feel comfortable and get rid of any kind of lingering psychological issues over whether that knee is going to help him or not, or going to buckle on him. So, what we saw there was vintage Rondo, and I would be surprised if he doesn't maintain, some level of that, 13, 14 points a game, double-digit assists, rebounds. He really is, one of the top 3 point guards, and I had to have him pegged at number 1 when he was healthy. So the only question now is, will Boston keep him or try and move him?
You know what? That was sort of the big question for so long, is when Brad Stevens took over, whether or not he'd be the fall guy, whether or not he'd be on the move. And I think Brad Stevens really loves coaching him because of his ability to spread the court, because of his passing ability, his ability to be a floor general for them. Listen, they know that they're in rebuilding mode. They've admitted to it. They've been very transparent, but you still need a veteran guy to bring a lot of those guys together. If Rondo accepts that role, I don't see any reason to really trade him at this point.
I agree. I mean, he's a coach's dream. I have no idea how Doc and him got into such issues when Doc Rivers was still there. But the bottom line is he does everything you'd want to do in a point guard. He's not selfish. He sets up teammates. He plays defense. He's a really good defender when I've seen him really engaged.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, there's not much I would have any problem with. And if there ever was an issue, I would work my damnedest to figure out a way to communicate so we can be on the same page.
And a healthy Rondo means for an entertaining season, at least for a rebuilding Boston club, at least fans can go and watch Rajon Rondo play. To another guy that had a really big game to start off the NBA season, that was a guy that was sort of an afterthought as part of the Big Three in Miami, and that was Chris Bosh. A lot of people, Coach, thought that he would get back to more of the form that he played with in Toronto because he had such a limited role with Miami, and he broke out. 26 points, 15 boards, 4 assists, had a couple three-pointers as well against the Wizards. I mean, he's even talked about averaging double-digit rebounds for the first time since the 2009-2010 season. I'll ask you a similar question that I asked you about Rondo. Are you buying into Chris Bosh having that major bounce-back year?
I mean, absolutely. Here's what I was excited about was that he would get to post up more, and unfortunately, that really hasn't happened. Although you can argue that getting 3 post-ups in that first game is more than he got, in any other game in the last few years. So that's good, but there's no question he should be on that right block 7-8 times a game and going to work and getting, a lot of points out of that position. I think it's going to help him even more. And I think what you're seeing is that without getting so pulled far on the defensive end, when they were getting so out of position trying to pressure the ball, all of a sudden they can get some rebounds. So their take was they were a bad rebounding team because they were small or whatever. They could have very well been a bad rebounding team because their defense brought them out of position so far. So this is encouraging to see them play home a little bit more, and that'll allow Chris Bosh certainly to get a lot more rebounds.
Let me follow up on that really quickly, because I want to go back to something about Bosh being able to be a better rebounder. Was that just a situation of playing on the floor with LeBron at the same time and not being able to utilize what he does so well, or was that Spoelstra not utilizing Chris Bosh the way that he should be playing?
Well, for the most part, on pick and rolls, which is how the teams want to attack the Heat, they would have Bosh, 20 feet out of the floor, and he's trying to trap and pressure the ball all the way up toward half court. Well, when the ball gets swung and shot, it's very difficult to get down there and get the rebounds. And that was what was happening a lot of the time. And then certainly playing the perimeter on offense, he wasn't going to get an offensive rebound either. So those are the reasons primarily why he would go with those games where he get like 2 or 3 rebounds. He just wasn't anywhere in position near the basket for much of that game. And that should change significantly this year.
And this is something that a lot of people predicted, that Bosh would get back to form. I was a little skeptical, but certainly off to a nice start. Final one on the starting 5 for you, Coach. It's always early in the season, so we like to take a look at the teams. Everyone's always making finals predictions, so on and so forth. But give me a team from the East, give me a team from the West that you think maybe can sneak up on some people this year.
Well, with Stan Van Gundy in Detroit, certainly there's some optimism there, and they have some pieces. So I would have to say in the East, you could look at them for sure. And then I think the Wizards are sort of a pseudo dark horse because everyone knows about them from the playoffs. But I think that they have one of the best backcourts in the league, and that experience they did gain last year should be really vital, especially when Paul Pierce comes back.
I think so as well. I mean, Pierce is already off to a good start for them. You talked about Wall being able to step up in more of a leadership role. Bradley Beal, I think, is so key for them when he comes back, and he was able to stretch the floor so well against the Bulls in the postseason a year ago. Detroit's an intriguing call as well, especially in the East, because I think Van Gundy is eventually, they're off to a slow start, but he's going to get the most out of his guys. And as long as he can get Josh Smith to stop taking terrible shots, I think they should be in good shape. What about in the West for you?
You could easily go with, the Phoenix Suns, which everyone, is talking about because they got so close and they added Isaiah Thomas. And I like their team, and I certainly like how they run their offense. It's a very difficult thing to defend. I certainly think that, Denver, everyone's forgotten that Gallinari is coming back.
Yeah.
And if he can hit his form, and you got Ty Lawson and you got Kenneth Faried, who played very well for FIBA and showed some varied offensive game, everyone's going to sleep on them, and they might sneak in there.
I think Denver's an intriguing pick, too. I really like their backcourt. I'm a fan of Ty Lawson. I think Aflalo's a really nice player as well. And then Dallas is part of the same reason that I think so many people like the Bulls. There's just so much depth on that team, especially at the point guard position with Nelson and Harris and Felton. Monte Ellis looks like he's going to step up his game this year. And you have Dirk, who I think feels a little bit more refreshed and really revitalized right now.
Yeah, and then you have Carlisle, the second best coach in the league. So you know that they're going to be competitive. They're going to make smart decisions down the stretch, and he'll help them stay in a lot of games that they otherwise wouldn't have been.
And there you go. That's the starting five as we get you going to start this NBA season. Coach, I feel like we're already in midseason form.
Absolutely. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? You in?
I'm in. I'm in.